money and you want to spend it on something that you want, but you don't really like what the money is going to. And that's what this episode is going to be about. When you want to have something that's nice, but once you get to experience where your money is going to, you no longer want any part of it, or you can't relate to the product anymore, or you just feel dirty if you invest any more in that product. If you've been there, I understand, and I'm here to advocate for you because in Life Examine, not only do we talk about positive things and how to push forward and how not to fall back in this game that we call life, but we also advocate for the people who can't stand up for themselves, who can't talk on behalf of bad companies. Companies that think that the customer is always wrong, which is not a good business practice. I worked in customer service for about 10 years, and it was probably the best time in my life. So in this episode, we're going to present you with a residence in West Philadelphia that used to be the old West Philadelphia High School, which was closed and then remodeled into residences. Some people call them condos, some people call them lofts, but the name of this place is called West's Lofts. It's called that because the school was big enough that they were able to convert apartments and units in this residence into two-level apartments that some might consider luxury, some might consider overpriced, some might consider beautiful, some might consider the best place to live in West Philadelphia. But I am going to tell you a different story. I'm going to tell you the story about how I almost ended up in prison because of this place that is supposed to be one of the 10 best places or 4 best places to live in Philadelphia. Of course, everybody goes to work, they make a good living, you make your money however you make your money. You like to go someplace where you are appreciated, you have a sense of community, you have a sense of belonging, you want to feel reasonably safe, you want to feel excited about coming home and getting the things that you paid for in a timely manner. And if there's some repairs being made, especially if you live in an apartment, you want it to be there, you want it to work. Now, I can tell you a lot of good stories about why people like living here, but you can read the reviews for that. I can tell you a lot of good stories about how this place is perfect, but you can read the reviews for that. But I want to tell you, give you firsthand experience about how it was like, how it is like to live in West Lofts in Philadelphia. First off, what you might like about it, it's that the atmosphere inside the building looks like you are going into another dimension, another portal. You might also like that it still remains the integrity of what used to be the West Philadelphia High School is still here. And it's, let's face it, one of the more interesting looking buildings because of the architects that put it together way back in, I believe, 1911 or 1920, that also made a lot of the buildings in Philadelphia, including some charter schools, and they used to be the Durham schools. Many buildings around the area were made by the same architect as the same one that was made in West Lofts. Now, something happened recently that West Lofts cannot explain, and the reason they can't explain it is because they are lying. They are liars. And this is why I had to make this review, because it was my responsibility as someone who works in an industry of responsibility. I have to hold this company responsible for what happened very recently. Put your seatbelts on because it's not going to be pretty, but I'm going to tell you the story about how this company wanted me in prison for no other reason than wanting an explanation as to why there was a bill that was not there for almost 2 years. And the reason it wasn't there, it was because that what was promised to me. This bill was not to be there. And if it was going to be there, they had to notify me before. And did they notify me? They could have. They could have been courteous. They could have said, you know what? This guy's been living here for almost 2 years, paid his rent on time, paid his rent early, nice to a lot of people who live here, and he brings a lot of good energy to this place because he respects his neighbors and everybody who works here. Well, that wasn't the case. Some people who should remain nameless in the management office said, it is not our job to notify you that you have an extra bill to pay for. So I'm going to break this down for you. Rent in West Lofts, depending on when you lease, most likely will be in the middle of the month or the end of the month. I am scheduled to pay on the 27th of the month. I paid on the 19th of the month. I've had a zero balance for more than 2 years of living here. But that's why when I get a bill for almost $350 for electricity, all I want is a little explanation. Now, some of you might be thinking, doesn't everybody pay for electricity? Of course. Do I mind paying for electricity? No. Can I pay for electricity? Yes. Do I like paying for electricity? No. Do I like bright lights? Yes. Do I like paying rent? No. Do I like to be able to come home in a place that things are working, with working lights, working water, and the building's well maintained? Yes. And that is why I pay it. Not because I like to, because it's my responsibility. But it's also my responsibility to tell you that as beautiful as the building is on the outside and parts of the inside, I'm sorry to have to tell you that the experience that I recently had with management was a very ugly one. Ugly in that it had a lot of layers to it. Ugly in that after I requested to go to the office and talk to management, I was there for about 2 minutes before the man, who I didn't know who he was, said, get the heck, what are you going to say? I won't say it again. Get the out of my office. After talking to the young lady who I believe is his assistant, the property assistant, who has a very good reputation in other parts of Philadelphia for the job that she does. But I don't know if everybody's in on it. I don't know. Because once you see that the owner, the guy who said it was the owner, comes out like this, is connected to everybody here in the office, at this point you are on your own. You do not know if they're all in on it, and you don't know if this is their way of doing business. And you start to wonder if the positive reviews are real, and you start to wonder if the negative reviews are real too. So in being there for 2 minutes, he says, get out of the office. This was about 5:30 in the afternoon. He said, you have no reason to be here. We don't have to notify you if we add a discharge. I am going to call the police. So he threatened violence by trying to involve the police because he could not win the conversation. The conversation that I was having with the young lady who's there, and who's usually very nice and usually shows people all around this building and all the things that it has to offer, nice artworks on the wall, and the dog area that it has over here, and the Airbnbs that they have in a lot of units, because some of them are able to be rented and some of them are not, but they're nice places to stay. And while talking to her, he just jumps in and says, get out. That's enough. I am going to call the police. What do you think I said? I remained calm and I asked him, who are you? Right? If someone comes to you like that without manners, without evidence that they had any kind of formal training in dealing with people, you can have two reactions. You can respond with their same energy, or you can keep your cool and remain stoic and just act like if you're watching a made-for-TV miniseries involving people that do not know how to deal with people. So I chose to take that route. Because why? I'm used to working with children. And working with children, you try to find other avenues to solve your problems besides having a tantrum, besides having a fit, besides trying to intimidate me into leaving and not ask questions. Because when someone does not want you to ask questions, what they really want you to do is to be quiet, take what's accepted. And the one thing that he said that stuck out with me, besides I'm going to call the police, was I should feel lucky. Now, in a way, I do feel lucky because most of the things I have, I've worked for. I'm lucky in that I've been responsible enough to pay throughout everything that was the lockdowns the last 2 years. I've been able to pay for a place to live. I've been able to support the people around me that need supporting. I've been able to come to you and make videos and to lend a helping hand where I can, which sometimes is a lot and sometimes it's not. So I am lucky in that way. But the lucky that the owner was talking about was a kind of luck that all this time I did not have to pay for electricity. So it was not his responsibility to notify me that I now had to pay for electricity. Now think about that for a second. Let's say I am the breadwinner of my family and I am married and my wife stays home. And now she's going to have to, I lost my job and she has to work. What's the first thing that I should do if I am the breadwinner of the family and now all of a sudden the budgeting of this family arrangement has to change? I would probably have to notify my wife that, you know what, your role has changed. It would probably suck, but the roles have changed, and the first thing I have to do is to notify her, because if the mortgage is due or the rent is due or whatever you pay is due, the first thing you have to do is say, you know what, you are due to pay this amount of money because I can no longer afford to do it. It's common courtesy. It's also good communication. But the last thing I would probably tell her is stop asking questions. Get out of here. I am going to call the police on you because now you are responsible for this amount of money. But when someone does not have a better argument, they usually threaten violence. And that's what he did when he wanted to call the cops. I don't know who he thought I was. I don't think that he thought that I was going to be as calm as I was and just be battling with him back and forth. But again, I have two signs in the classes in which I teach. One is believe, a belief in yourself that you don't have to take the world as it's given to you. You can change it. The second one is respect. If you start with respect, if you start with manners, it usually is a more fruitful conversation and you don't have to get anyone else involved because you can resolve it between friends, between colleagues, between human beings that share space on this earth. But once somebody comes out to you and says, you know, you should be lucky. Someone comes out to you and says, get blank out of my office. Once someone comes to you and says, I am going to call the police. I don't have to explain these charges to you. Then you have to question, have I been wrong? Is there something else going on here that I didn't want to admit is happening? Because that word that a lot of people use that starts with R could be at play. But you know what sucks? Is that he was comfortable with it. The other thing that sucks is it didn't matter that I paid on time all this time. The other thing that sucks is you can't prove that somebody is that. So that's why I stay away from that. And probably you should too. The one thing I can prove is that they are unprofessional. The one thing I can prove is that the people that you say hi to every single day are the same people that once you ask a question about charges, all of a sudden, they don't want to explain it to you. They don't want to take the time to explain that this is something that you should have known beforehand. Oh, I'm not going to be working for a long period of time, but I don't have to explain to you. You have budgeting and constraints and demands, but I don't have to explain to you. Now, could I pay this? Of course I can pay this. Is it wrong for them to tell me that I don't have to explain something to you? No, it's not wrong. Is it good business practice? Yes, it is. Yes, it is absolutely business practice, good business practice to tell the people who are living in your building, not as an Airbnb, not as a visitor, but as someone who has been a long time resident of this place, following the rules, no complaints about this person, and likes this place and has recommended this place to other people. You are willing to throw all of that away because of what? Rudeness, lack of manners, electing the jerk approach instead of a human approach. Sometimes you can lose a lot more in 2 minutes than you could have just explained it. You know what? My mistake. We didn't notify you about this. I have the emails, right? Because after not paying electricity for 2 years, about 3 p.m. yesterday, or the day before, can't remember, it's all a blur now. I get 3 consecutive emails about not paying this electricity bill that I haven't paid in about 2 years. Retroactive, what? And then it's explaining about you didn't pay in November and October and December and January, and we're able to overlook that because of this. And I'm thinking, overlook what? Those never showed up on the bill. What is there to overlook? So when a management company is telling you you owe this money that you know you're not responsible for, you have 2 options. You can hold them to their good graces and hope that love or whatever else prevails, like my friend would say, and I'll leave that up to her. I'll leave that up to her to go with that. But once you're talking about not explaining charges that you haven't been paying for 3 years and calling the police when you're asked for an explanation, and it's not like I think what he expected was for me to just jump into it. What you mean, yo? I'm going to beat everybody up. I'm just going to go there, and saying that he feels intimidated by asking a question. Me and the young lady were having a good conversation. Not a good conversation, but a productive conversation as to the explanation of his charges. Now, I understand also from her position, she can't speak her mind when she's in front of somebody who cuts her check. And that's why a lot of things stay the way they are. People don't want to speak in front of people that cut their check. But your spiritual energy then slowly dies because you know that the people who you work for are not people that probably should have power. Because the thing about power, and this is why I try to run from it as far as I can, is because I don't know many people who've gotten power who do not love to abuse it. Every chance they can, even if it's for the little things. Even if it's just for $300. Even if it's just for, we have somebody who doesn't mind living, who likes to live here. But at the same time, I realize that if I see this person a certain way, he must be that. And what I'm here to tell you is you can live here. It's a beautiful place. It's a place where I would recommend up until yesterday. And you might have a different experience than me. You might love it here. You might see that the outside is beautiful. You might see that you don't really hear a lot of noise from the neighbors. But once you look into the inside and you start looking at the face of the ugly spirit that the owner supposedly has, not supposedly, I kind of saw it straight up, and it wasn't, how you can just look at somebody and see, well, I wanted to reason with you, but the only thing you saw when you saw in front of you was someone who was not, does not need respect, you shouldn't be respectful for this person. I just see someone who is probably just a number. Someone who is just a face that I can collect money from, but not necessarily have to ever deal with the fact that there was an amendment in their bill in their rent. And I don't have to tell them that. Why? Because I don't have to. Why? Because that's what I said. Why? Because you like living here and you should feel lucky to live here. Lucky to live in the place that used to be West Philadelphia High School. I guess the kids who used to go to school here should be lucky that they don't have a school to go to anymore in the community. I guess that once you get to a certain level of achievement, manners are below you. I guess when you get to a certain level of prestige, I think that the things that perhaps should have shaped you when you were growing up don't matter. And I'm not saying they should, because this is where a lot of people use that R word for discrimination. But this is where I use the big E word for elitism. And that could be of any race and of any color. And if I feel I'm better than you because you sweep floors and I sit at the front desk, or you think that because I sit in the middle office inside the lobby with the light on, crowded, probably a virus hazard, and because I get to work or live in a place that's called West Lofts, everyone who I should understand needs an explanation of charges. It's a financial difference in the statement. But everyone who is not of my caliber, I don't know an explanation to you. I live here. You live here. I don't. As beautiful as this place is, it's still West Philadelphia. Don't you want to live here at West Lofts? All the reviews say that it's great. West Lofts. It still says the name West Philadelphia High School outside. Wow. One thing that ran through my mind the other day, as I was going to the gym early in the morning, do my reps, was a lot of kids went to school here. This is a lot of rooms that they were able to make into apartments. And maybe they're outsiders. I don't know. Maybe they moved here from New York. Maybe, they don't care too much about the community or whatever. It's not their responsibility to care about the community, right? If you're in a business, you're in a business to make money. You don't really look at who's moving in, aside from the credit check. You want people to give you money. But as I was getting ready to go to the gym, I'm sitting there, in my vehicle, and I see my car's warming up. It's an old car. I see two guys walking by, and they're black. They weren't born in Africa, so they're not African American. They're black. And they're walking by the school, and they're looking up, and they're saying, I used to go to school here. Can you believe that? That's crazy. They look, older. Maybe they went to school when they was, I don't know what grade they could have been in. Maybe a few of the last years. I think they moved the actual West Philadelphia High School further up, by 52nd or 49th. I'm not necessarily sure. I just know it's not here anymore. One thing that they were saying, that used to be my classroom. I remember looking out that window and seeing this same view all the time. Now, the thing I thought about was, can they live here if they wanted to? Now, that's a curiosity question. That's nothing else, right? That's just pure curiosity. I encourage people to examine life. The name of this channel is called Life Examine. And I like to talk about things that I feel strongly about. I like to talk about things and products that I feel strongly about. And one thing I feel strongly about is good service, because I know how many bad businesses there are out there. So what I want you to understand is that in them asking that question, it made me ponder another question. If they wanted to just walk around the building, can they? Because they had a art night not too long ago, but how inclusive are you? Do you want to be inclusive? Maybe you don't. Maybe that's part of the attitude that happened. But then again, I wonder, am I just crying victim here? If they wanted to live here, they could live here, right? They can shell out a few $1,000s every month and just say, well, this is a nice place to live. I don't really have to interact. And the problem with not interacting is that you don't know what other people are thinking. You don't get exposed to people that might want to mean you well, but all you can see is this person will look better in jail. This person had a question for me, but I think he would look better in prison. That red jumpsuit that he's wearing, he probably look better in orange. Maybe that's what was in his mind. I don't know what he thought. Maybe he thought that, man, my voice should have been different. Hey, man, come on, man. I don't got to pay this electricity. What did he think what were you expecting to happen? I don't know. Since he didn't explain, the only reason I'm coming to you now is because I didn't get a chance to explain to him or even resolve anything. So one thing I want to advise you to do anytime that you have an incident like this, as we approach the 30-minute mark, nobody ever accused me of not being able to talk, is that there are a few things you can do. You can leave reviews on Google. That's how you know where your money's going through. Now I get it. Google does delete some reviews because sometimes the companies, they compromise the integrity of it, right? Money rules, right? We know that, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of reviews were being removed because of certain things, even though, they say that it's an open platform. Another thing, you can go on Yelp. You could share your experience. I had a few friends come up to me and say, you know what? This is my experience. This has been my experience with them. And take everything with a grain of salt because, as I'm sitting here, you don't know if I'm lying or not. I could have just made this whole thing up. But the only way for you to find out is to read some of the reviews, not just the good ones, because you can be led by positive reviews all the time. That's why I don't just go by positive reviews. You can buy reviews. I can buy a whole bunch of reviews for this channel and get a whole bunch of likes, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather grow this channel organically. But I also think that there's something to, if I messed up in an area, let me warn somebody else that might be trying to come behind and just let them know what's happened. They can make up their own mind. You don't have to do what I say. You could rent every room here if you want. You could bring your whole family here if you want. I'm just talking about my experience here and the experience that I had with management recently, not 2 or 3 years ago. I'm talking about less than 52 hours ago. That was my experience here in West Lofts, in this Philadelphia top 4 place to live in Philadelphia. Now, sometimes you can go and look at people's faces who work here, and you could tell they want to say something, but you could also tell they can't say something. They can't. Because also those places, right? You look at people, they can't say something. But they see things, and they know things. And they are afraid to speak. And yesterday I saw why. And that's why I mentioned to the lady when I was speaking to her outside, you don't have to work here. You know where your money's coming from. Just like I don't have to live here because I know where my money's going. And that's why we have this channel. You know where your money's going. And a lot of you can't afford to talk like I'm talking. And that's why a lot of things don't change, or a lot of people don't dare to talk like I'm talking. Do I fear retaliation from the company? Yes. But is this more important? Probably. Will this have any influence whether I sign another lease here or not? Probably. Should you know about this experience? Yes. Yes. Because this is what is happening. Now you know that some of those reviews that you were reading, they can't all be lying. They weren't all lying. Some of the reviews that are online right now about West Lofts, about how they never got a call back. I wasn't allowed to see the place. Different races too. I'm not just saying AA. Different races, different people for different reasons. One thing to expect. Now, don't get me wrong, it's gotten better than it was before. On the exterior. Before, you would get a lot of alarms here. Every day. You wake up in the middle of the night just because the alarm system wasn't set. Construction hasn't finished here yet. There's construction happening here 24 hours a day. There was a fire on the roof. Everyone had to evacuate. There's dog poop. Almost everybody has a dog here. There's dog poop all over the place. Outside. The best people that work at West Lofts are the security guards, the people that clean up day and night, the people that watch around. Maybe one person in the office. No, two people in the office. But they have a lot of other people in the office. It's a well-kept building. The people who clean this building should be proud. The people who take out the garbage should be proud. The people who help every single resident get their packages, they can't hardly sit or eat their lunch, should be proud. Shame on management. Shame on you for making them look bad. Shame on management for making the people at West Lofts, who are not management, who are security, who just want to work, look bad. Shame on you. Look at some of these reviews. Are they accredited by the Better Business Bureau? No, they're not. It says a lot. Read about some of those complaints about cutting costs. Read about those complaints about when construction was promised to start and when construction was promised to finish. Do I have that issue? Not all of them. My issue is the one that I mentioned to you now. The one that I mentioned to you, because you can build up a great reputation with a customer, a client, like we've seen here in this channel, Voro Motors, and then overnight, it goes down to zero because of that one experience, that you decided to pull back the layers and show the world who you really were. You messed up a good relationship. You messed up probably a lot of other tenants who don't mind paying for electricity, tenants who have been paying for electricity all their life, tenants who like to be able to live in a place that does not treat you like a criminal for asking questions. Now, if anybody has any questions about this experience or about me or whether I'm lying or not, right? I have proof, I have receipts, and I have pictures. So if you'd like to find out more about this, get to know me. Like I always say, see me on the street, say hello. You see me outside, say hello. If you see me anywhere, at work, if you see me at any one of my jobs, contact me, email me, FaceTime, YouTube, leave a comment. I already did. Google, Yelp, Better Business Bureau, where they're not accredited. Ask yourself why. Sometimes you don't see things until you see them. And I saw it. And the outside is pretty, like I said in my review, but the inside is ugly, and it's just gonna rot. Thank you for your time. This has been my review of West Lofts, West Philadelphia. Get your act right.